The unlikely encounter. The spaceship Arbiter was a marvel of interstellar engineering, a testament to the combined efforts of the Galactic Union. It had been 1,000 years since the Union had been formed, uniting hundreds of alien species under one banner. Peace had been achieved across the galaxy, and with it, the flourishing of knowledge, culture, and exploration. Captain Psylocke of the Calorethian race was at the helm of Arbiter, a vessel dedicated to scientific discovery. The Calorethians were known for their logic-driven society, where emotion played a secondary role to reason. Psylocke embodied this ideal perfectly. His decisions were calculated, his demeanor calm and collected, even in the face of danger. The mission was simple: explore the newly discovered Sector 9 Gamma, a region that had been mysteriously shielded from scanners until recent breakthroughs. It was rumored to hold remnants of ancient civilizations, perhaps even those predating the Union itself. Psylocke was eager to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the stars. But as the Arbiter entered Sector 9 Gamma, something unexpected happened. The ship's systems began to flicker, sensors went haywire, and a strange energy field enveloped the vessel. Psylocke ordered his crew to investigate, but before they could pinpoint the source, a distress signal was received. "Captain, we're picking up a signal," reported Ensign Riala, a young Zorbian with a knack for communication systems. Her multi-limbed form moved swiftly across the control panel, decoding the message. It's an ancient dialect, one we've never encountered before." "Put it on the main screen," Psylocke commanded. The screen flickered, and a message appeared in strange archaic symbols. The translation algorithm worked its magic, and soon the message became clear. "This is the Earth vessel Resolute, stranded in Sector 9 Gamma. We request immediate assistance. Life support systems failing. Coordinates attached. Earth." Psylocke mused aloud. "I've never heard of such a planet." "Neither have I," Captain Riala responded, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Shall we investigate?" Psylocke pondered the decision. The logical course of action was to proceed with caution, especially given the unknown nature of the situation. But something deep within him, a feeling he rarely entertained, urged him to act. "Set a course for the coordinates," he ordered. "Prepare for potential hostilities. We don't know what we might encounter." As the Arbiter approached the designated location, the ship's sensors began to stabilize. The energy field dissipated, revealing a small battered spacecraft drifting in the void. Its design was unlike anything the crew had ever seen, crude, by their standards, yet resilient. "Captain, we're detecting one life form aboard," Riala reported. "Barely alive. We need to act fast if we're going to save it." Psylocke hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Prepare the medical bay. Bring the life form aboard." The crew worked quickly, extending a docking arm to connect with the Resolute. The transfer was smooth, and soon the lone occupant of the ancient vessel was being brought aboard the Arbiter. As the medical team rushed the life form to the bay, Psylocke followed, his mind racing with questions. What was this being? How had it survived in such a primitive craft? And what secrets did it hold about the mysterious Sector 9 Gamma? When Psylocke arrived at the medical bay, he found Dr. Terrell, the ship's chief medical officer, already at work. The being on the table was humanoid in shape, with a robust build and weathered features. Its skin was pale, its eyes closed, its breathing shallow. "Status?" Psylocke asked. "Critical, but stable," Terrell replied, her voice calm. "This being is fascinating, Captain. Its biology is unlike anything we've encountered. The resilience is remarkable. Can you revive it?" "I believe so, but it will take time. Its body has endured extreme conditions, far beyond what most species could survive." "Do what you can, Doctor. I want to speak with it as soon as possible." As Terrell worked to stabilize the being, Psylocke couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was no mere coincidence. There was something about this humanoid, something that tugged at the edges of his logic-driven mind, whispering of ancient stories and forgotten legends. Hours passed, and finally Tyrell stepped back from the table, her work complete. The being's eyes fluttered open, revealing a piercing gaze that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom and pain. "Captain," Tyrell said softly, "it's awake." Psylocke approached the table, his expression one of curiosity and caution. The being looked up at him, its gaze intense but wary. "Can you understand me?" Psylocke asked, using the universal translator. The being nodded weakly, its voice hoarse as it spoke. "Yes, I can understand you. What is your name? Where are you from?" The being took a deep breath before answering. "My name is Alex Mercer. I'm from Earth, but that was a long time ago." Psylocke felt a shiver run down his spine. There was something about the way this Alex Mercer spoke, something that hinted at a story far larger than any the captain had ever encountered. "Earth," Psylocke repeated, the name foreign on his tongue. "What happened to your planet?" Alex closed his eyes, as if the memories were too painful to bear. "It's a long story, Captain. One that begins with a time when humans were the masters of their fate, before everything changed, before the galaxy forgot we ever existed." Psylocke felt a surge of emotion, a rare occurrence for a Calorithian. This human, this Alex Mercer, had survived unimaginable odds, and now he was here, aboard the Arbiter, with a story that could change everything. And so, as the Arbiter continued its journey through Sector 9 Gamma, Alex Mercer began to tell his tale, a tale of hope, of loss, of survival. A tale that would challenge everything the crew thought they knew about the galaxy and their place within it. But most of all, it was a tale about humanity and how, against all odds, they had never truly been forgotten. The Forgotten War. As Alex Mercer recovered aboard the Arbiter, his strength gradually returned, and with it, his memories. The crew, initially skeptical of the human story, soon found themselves captivated by his tale. "Captain Psylocke," Alex began one evening as they gathered in the ship's common area. "I suppose I should start at the beginning. You asked about Earth, my home. To understand what happened, you need to know about the war." "The war?" Psylocke echoed, leaning forward with interest. "Yes, the war," Alex confirmed, his voice tinged with bitterness. "It was the beginning of the end for us. We called it the Last War, though it was anything but. Humanity had achieved great things: space travel, colonization of distant worlds, even the beginnings of interstellar diplomacy. But we were also arrogant, believing we were invincible." "Against whom?" Rahala asked, her curiosity piqued. "Against each other," Alex replied with a rueful smile. "The last war was a conflict between human factions, driven by greed, pride, and fear. It was a war that nearly destroyed us all." He paused, gathering his thoughts before continuing. "The war escalated quickly, drawing in colonies from across the galaxy. Advanced weapons, many of which we barely understood, were deployed. Entire planets were devastated, reduced to lifeless husks. And then the Void appeared." "The Void?" Tyrell asked, her brow furrowed. Alex nodded. The Void was a mysterious phenomenon, a rift in space-time that began consuming entire star systems. No one knew where it came from or how to stop it. Some believed it was a natural disaster. Others thought it was the result of our own weapons, a tear in the fabric of reality. Whatever it was, it spread rapidly, threatening to engulf the entire galaxy. The room fell silent as the crew absorbed the gravity of Alex's words. "We were desperate," Alex continued. "The factions, once bitter enemies, were forced to unite in a last-ditch effort to stop the Void. We called it the Coalition. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, all working together for the first time in decades. But it was too late. The Void was unstoppable." "So what happened?" Psylocke asked, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "We fought," Alex said simply. "We fought with everything we had. But the void was relentless. It consumed our fleets, our colonies, our homeworlds. Earth was one of the last to fall." Alex's voice wavered as he spoke of his home. "I was there, Captain, when it happened. I saw the sky tear open, saw the cities crumble. We tried to evacuate, to save as many as we could, but it wasn't enough. The void took everything." The crew exchanged glances, the weight of Alex's story pressing down on them. They had encountered many species, many stories, but nothing like this. "How did you survive?" Terrell asked gently. Alex sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "I was part of a deep space expedition when it happened, searching for a way to stop the void. We failed, of course. When Earth fell, we lost contact with the rest of the coalition. My ship, the Resolute, became stranded in uncharted space. The crew, well, I'm the last one left." The silence that followed was thick with emotion. Even Xylox, usually so composed, found himself struggling to maintain his calm. "We eventually stumbled upon this sector," Alex continued. "Sector 9 Gamma. It's a place of anomalies, of strange phenomena that defy explanation. We thought it might hold the key to stopping the void, but instead, we found something else, something ancient, something powerful." "What did you find?" Psylocke asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alex looked at him, his eyes haunted. "We found a weapon, Captain. A weapon created by an ancient civilization long before humanity even existed. A weapon that could destroy the void." "And you have this weapon?" Rowla asked, her excitement barely contained. Alex shook his head. "No, we found it, but we couldn't control it. The weapon, it's alive in a way. It rejected us, deemed us unworthy. It triggered the energy field that brought your ship here. It's been lying dormant, waiting for the right moment, the right beings, to wield it." Psylocke felt a chill run down his spine. The implications of Alex's words were staggering. A weapon capable of stopping the void, created by an ancient race? It was almost too much to comprehend. "But now," Alex said, his voice growing stronger, "now there's a chance. With your help, we might be able to unlock the weapon's power, to stop the void once and for all." The crew of the Arbiter looked to Xylox, awaiting his decision. The logical part of him urged caution, but something deeper, something more primal, pushed him toward action. "Captain," Alex said, his voice filled with determination, "I know this is a lot to ask, but if there's even a chance we can stop the void, we have to try. Humanity may be gone, but we can still save the galaxy." Psylocke stood, his mind racing. This mission had taken a turn he never could have predicted, and yet he couldn't ignore the pull of destiny that seemed to surround Alex Mercer and his tale. "Very well," Psylocke said finally. "We'll investigate this weapon, but we'll proceed with caution. We don't know what we're dealing with, and I won't risk my crew unnecessarily." "Thank you, Captain," Alex replied, a hint of relief in his voice. "I promise you, this is our best chance." As the crew prepared for their next move, Alex couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. It had been so long since he had allowed himself to believe in something, to hope for a future. But now, aboard the Arbiter, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, he felt something stir within him. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Alex Mercer dared to believe that humanity's story wasn't over. The awakening, the journey to the heart of Sector 9 Gamma, was fraught with peril. The anomalies that had previously disrupted the Arbiter's systems grew more intense as they approached the weapon's last known location. Energy surges, gravitational distortions, and temporal fluctuations tested the crew's resolve and the ship's resilience. Captain Psylocke had ordered constant monitoring of all systems, and the crew worked tirelessly to keep the Arbiter on course. The closer they got, the more unstable the sector became, as if the very fabric of reality was resisting their presence. "Captain, we're detecting a massive energy spike ahead," Rayala reported, her multiple limbs dancing across the control panel. "It's unlike anything we've seen before." "On screen," Psylocke ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a massive structure floating in the void. It was ancient, its surface covered in intricate patterns and symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. The structure was colossal, dwarfing the Arbiter, and it pulsed with a strange rhythmic energy. "Is that the weapon?" Terrell asked, her voice tinged with awe. Alex nodded, his expression somber. "Yes, that's it. We called it the Eye of Eternity." The name was fitting. The structure resembled a colossal eye, with a central aperture that seemed to gaze into the depths of space. The energy emanating from it was overwhelming, a force of nature that defied comprehension. "We're entering a high-energy field," Captain Rayala warned. "I recommend we maintain a safe distance." Psylocke nodded. "Agreed. Hold position here. Let's not take any unnecessary risks." As the Arbiter held its position, Alex stared at the Eye of Eternity, his mind racing. The memories of his failed attempts to unlock the weapon's power resurfaced, filling him with a sense of dread. But now, with the Arbiter's advanced technology and the diverse knowledge of its crew, there was a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. "Captain," Alex began, turning to Psylocke, "the eye is incredibly complex. We tried for years to understand it, to decipher its purpose, but we barely scratched the surface. The key to activating it lies in the patterns on its surface. Those symbols. They represent a code, a sequence that must be input correctly to awaken the weapon." Psylocke studied the screen, his analytical mind already working through the problem. "Do you have any idea what the correct sequence might be?" "Only fragments," Alex admitted. "We managed to decode parts of it, but the full sequence eluded us. It's not just about understanding the symbols, it's about resonance, about aligning the energy fields correctly. One wrong move, and the entire structure could collapse, or worse." "Can we interface with it remotely?" Psylocke asked. "We tried that," Alex replied, shaking his head. "The eye is designed to resist external control. It needs a physical presence, someone to input the sequence directly. Then we'll need to send a team," Psylocke concluded. "Dr. Tyrell, I want you to lead the expedition. Take a small group with you, including Alex. We'll need his expertise." Tyrell nodded, her expression resolute. "Understood, Captain." Alex felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for, the moment that could either save the galaxy or doom it. As he prepared to join the expedition, he couldn't help but think of the countless lives that had been lost, the civilizations that had been consumed by the void. The burden of responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. The expedition team, consisting of Tyrell, Alex, and 2 security officers, suited up and made their way to the shuttle bay. The tension was palpable as they boarded the shuttle, the realization that they were about to face the unknown settling in. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and soon they were soaring toward the Eye of Eternity. The structure loomed larger with each passing moment, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. As they approached the central aperture, a docking bay became visible, its entrance framed by glowing symbols. The shuttle aligned with the bay, and with a gentle thud, they made contact. "We've docked," Tyrell announced, her voice steady. "Everyone stay alert. We don't know what we're dealing with here." The shuttle doors hissed open, revealing a dimly lit corridor leading into the heart of the eye. The air was heavy with an ancient, oppressive energy, and the walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Alex took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. "This way," he said, leading the team down the corridor. The control chamber should be at the center of the structure. The journey through the eye was disorienting. The corridors twisted, and turned in ways that defied logic, as if the very architecture of the structure was in flux. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter as they progressed, guiding them toward their destination. Finally, they arrived at a massive chamber, its ceiling stretching far above them. In the center of the chamber stood a monolithic console, covered in symbols that pulsed with energy. The console was surrounded by a series of concentric rings, each one spinning slowly, generating a low hum that reverberated through the chamber. "This is it," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The control chamber." Terrell approached the console, her eyes scanning the symbols. "We need to be careful," she warned. "One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic reaction." Alex nodded, stepping up to the console. The symbols seemed to react to his presence, glowing brighter as his hands hovered over them. His heart pounded in his chest as he began to input the sequence, relying on the fragments of knowledge he had retained. The rings around the console began to spin faster, the hum growing louder. The energy in the chamber intensified, filling the air with static. "Steady," Terrell urged, her voice calm but firm. "You're doing fine, Alex. Just focus." Alex's hands trembled as he continued the sequence, each symbol lighting up in response. The energy reached a crescendo, and for a moment he feared he had made a mistake. But then, with a blinding flash of light, the console came to life. The rings stopped spinning, locking into place, and the hum ceased, leaving a deafening silence in its wake. The Eye of Eternity had awakened. The judgment. The activation of the Eye of Eternity sent shockwaves through Sector 9 Gamma. The anomalies that had plagued the region intensified, creating a maelstrom of energy that threatened to tear the sector apart. The crew of the Arbiter worked frantically to stabilize their position, their instruments struggling to keep up with the unprecedented levels of power being generated by the ancient weapon. Captain Psylocke watched the main screen, his heart pounding as he observed the unfolding chaos. The Eye of Eternity was now fully operational, its once dormant systems roaring to life with a ferocity that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "Status report." Psylocke barked, his voice cutting through the tension on the bridge. Riala's multiple eyes were fixed on her console as she rapidly processed the incoming data. "Captain, the energy output from the Eye is off the charts. It's creating massive disruptions in the space-time continuum. If this continues, the entire sector could collapse." Psylocke clenched his jaw, his mind racing as he considered their options. The stakes had never been higher, and the margin for error was razor-thin. "Can we shut it down?" he asked, his voice laced with urgency. Riala hesitated, her tendrils flicking nervously. "It's possible, but it would require inputting a reverse sequence directly into the Eye's control chamber. Given the current instability, there's no guarantee it would work, and even if it does, the process could be just as dangerous as leaving it active." Psylocke's gaze shifted to the screen, where the Eye of Eternity loomed like a titan in the void. The thought of abandoning the mission, of leaving the weapon unchecked, was unthinkable. The void was an existential threat to the galaxy, and the Eye was their only hope of stopping it. "Prepare a team," Psylocke ordered, his voice resolute. "We're going in." "Captain, with all due respect," Riala interjected, her voice filled with concern. "If we fail to stabilize the Eye, the resulting explosion could wipe out the entire sector. This is a risk we can't take lightly." Psylocke's gaze hardened, his resolve unwavering. "I understand the risks, but we have no choice. We can't leave this weapon in an unstable state. The fate of the galaxy may depend on our success." Riala nodded reluctantly, acknowledging the gravity of the situation. "Understood, Captain. I'll coordinate with the away team." As preparations were made for the mission, Alex and Dr. Terrell continued their work in the control chamber. The energy within the Eye was palpable, crackling through the air like static electricity. The symbols on the console glowed with an intensity that made it difficult to look directly at them. "This is incredible," Terrell muttered, her eyes wide with fascination. "The technology behind this structure is unlike anything we'd ever encountered. It's almost alive." Alex's focus remained on the console, his fingers moving with practiced precision as he input the final sequence. He had spent years studying the eye, trying to unlock its secrets, and now that he was so close, he could feel the weight of his responsibility bearing down on him. But as the final symbol was entered, something unexpected happened. The Eye of Eternity shuddered violently, and a wave of energy surged through the chamber, knocking Alex and Terrell off their feet. "What happened?" Terrell exclaimed, scrambling to her feet. Alex's heart raced as he stared at the console. The symbols had changed, their patterns shifting into something entirely different. The once stable sequence had been replaced by a chaotic jumble of symbols that defied all logic. No, this can't be right," Alex muttered, his voice filled with dread. "The eye is rejecting the sequence. It's rewriting itself." Terrell's expression turned to one of horror as she realized the implications. If the eye is rewriting its own code, it could be trying to adapt to the current situation. We could be dealing with an intelligence far beyond our comprehension. Alex's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. The Eye of Eternity was more than just a weapon. It was a sentient entity, one that had its own agenda. And now it was waking up in ways that they hadn't anticipated. "Captain, we have a problem," Alex said, activating his communicator. "The eye is rewriting its code. It's becoming self-aware. We need to shut it down before it fully awakens." There was a pause on the other end, and then Psylocke's voice came through, grim and determined. "Understood. We're on our way. Hold your position and try to stabilize the chamber. We can't afford to let this weapon fall into the wrong hands, or worse, lose control entirely." As the team braced themselves for the arrival of the Arbiter's crew, the energy within the eye continued to build, its power growing more unstable with each passing moment. The ancient weapon was no longer just a tool. It was a living entity, one that had the potential to reshape the galaxy itself. Alex's thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and determination. They had come so far, sacrificed so much, and now they were on the brink of either saving the galaxy or dooming it to oblivion. There was no turning back now. As the Arbiter approached the Eye of Eternity, its crew prepared for what could be their final mission. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the only thing that stood between salvation and destruction was the resolve of those who dared to challenge the unknown. And as the Eye's energy reached its peak, Alex Mercer couldn't help but feel that the true test of their strength was yet to come. The final stand. The Arbiter shook violently as it neared the Eye of Eternity, the sheer power radiating from the ancient structure, pushing the ship's systems to their limits. Captain Psylocke stood firm on the bridge, his eyes locked on the screen that displayed the swirling vortex of energy surrounding the eye. "Captain, the energy levels are continuing to rise," Rayala reported, her voice strained with the effort of keeping the ship stable. "If we don't act soon, the entire sector could be obliterated." Psylocke clenched his fists, his mind racing through the possibilities. The Eye of Eternity was unlike any threat they had ever faced. A sentient weapon, now awake and rewriting itself, its purpose unknown. They had no way of predicting what it would do next. "Prepare the boarding party," Psylocke ordered. "We need to shut it down before it destabilizes further." The away team, consisting of Psylocke, Alex Mercer, Dr. Terrell, and 2 heavily armed security officers, assembled in the shuttle bay. The air was thick with tension, each member of the team fully aware that they were heading into the heart of a deadly storm. As they boarded the shuttle and launched toward the Eye, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far beyond their control. The weapon was no longer just a machine. It was a being with its own will, and they were about to challenge it head-on. Alex, Psylocke said, his voice cutting through the silence, you're the only one who truly understands this thing. We'll follow your lead once we get inside. Alex nodded, his mind focused on the task ahead. We need to reach the central control chamber. That's where the eye's core is located. If we can overload the core, it should trigger a shutdown sequence. The shuttle approached the docking bay, the same one that Alex and Tyrell had used before. The entrance was now flickering with unstable energy, a sign that the eye was rapidly losing control. The shuttle docked with a jolt, and the doors hissed open, revealing the dimly lit corridor leading into the eye. The air crackled with energy, and the walls pulsed with a rhythm that seemed almost alive. Move quickly, Psylocke ordered, his tone calm but firm. We don't have much time. The team moved through the twisting corridors, their weapons at the ready. The path to the control chamber was eerily quiet, the only sound the hum of the energy resonating through the structure. As they neared the chamber, the walls began to shift, the symbols glowing with an intensity that made it hard to look at them directly. This isn't right, Tyrell whispered, her voice filled with unease. The eye is adapting to our presence. It's like it's trying to communicate. Alex's heart pounded as they reached the entrance to the control chamber. The massive doors were sealed shut, the symbols on them glowing with a strange, almost hypnotic pattern. We need to get through those doors, Alex said, stepping forward. Stand back. I'll try to override the locking mechanism. He approached the console beside the doors, his hands moving with practiced precision as he input a series of commands. The symbols on the doors shifted, their patterns rearranging in response to his actions. But as Alex worked, the eye reacted. The energy in the chamber surged, and the walls began to tremble. The ground beneath them shook violently, throwing the team off balance. Alex, hurry! Psylocke shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the unstable energy. I'm trying. Alex replied, his fingers flying across the console. The symbols continued to shift, their patterns becoming more complex, more chaotic. It was as if the eye was fighting him, resisting his attempts to shut it down. And then, with a deafening crack, the doors began to slide open. A blinding light flooded the corridor, forcing the team to shield their eyes. When the light finally dimmed, they saw the central control chamber before them. The chamber was a vast, circular room, its walls lined with the same glowing symbols that adorned the rest of the structure. In the center of the room stood the core, a massive, pulsating sphere of energy, suspended in mid-air by a series of intricate, rotating rings. This is it, Alex said, his voice filled with awe. The core of the Eye of Eternity. But before they could move closer, the core began to change. The energy within it swelled faster, and the rings around it spun at an increasing speed. The chamber filled with a low, resonating hum that grew louder with each passing moment. It's waking up, Tyrell warned, her eyes wide with fear. We need to shut it down now, or it'll tear this place apart. Alex stepped forward, his mind racing, as he tried to remember everything he had learned about the eye. The symbols, the sequences, the energy fields, it all came down to this moment. He knew that one wrong move could spell disaster, but he also knew that they had no choice. He approached the core, his hands trembling as he reached for the console beside it. The symbols on the console pulsed with energy, each one representing a different part of the eye's complex system. I need to overload the core's energy matrix, Alex muttered to himself, his voice barely audible. If I can create a feedback loop, it should trigger a shutdown. He began inputting the sequence, each symbol lighting up in response to his touch. The core's energy intensified, the swirling mass of power growing more volatile with each passing second. But as he worked, the eye fought back. The symbols on the console flickered, and the rings around the core began to spin wildly. The energy in the chamber surged, causing the ground to quake beneath their feet. Captain, we've got incoming, One of the security officers shouted, pointing to the entrance of the chamber. A horde of drones, sleek and menacing, emerged from the shadows, their weapons charging with deadly intent. The team barely had time to react before the drones opened fire, their energy blasts ricocheting off the walls. Defensive positions, Psylocke ordered, drawing his weapon. The team scattered, taking cover behind the consoles and pillars that lined the chamber. The drones swarmed the room, their numbers overwhelming. Psylocke and the security officers returned fire, their shots finding their marks, but the drones kept coming, their relentless assault pushing the team to their limits. "We can't hold them off forever," Terrell shouted, her voice filled with desperation. "Alex, we need that shut down now," Psylocke called out, firing at a drone that had gotten too close. "I'm almost there," Alex replied, his voice strained with concentration. The sequence was nearly complete, but the eye's resistance was growing stronger by the second. The core's energy reached a critical point, the swirling mass of power now a blinding, chaotic storm. The chamber shook violently, the walls cracking under the immense pressure. And then, with a final, desperate push, Alex input the last symbol. The effect was immediate. The core's energy flared, and the rings around it locked into place. The Eye of Eternity shuddered, and for a moment it seemed as though it would tear itself apart. But then the energy began to dissipate. The swirling storm of power slowed, the blinding light dimming as the core's energy levels dropped. The drones, still locked in combat with the team, suddenly froze in place, their systems shutting down as the Eye's control over them faded. The chamber fell silent, the once roaring hum of energy reduced to a faint, barely perceptible vibration. "We did it," Alex whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We actually did it." Psylocke lowered his weapon, his eyes scanning the room as he assessed the situation. The drones lay motionless on the ground, and the core of the Eye had returned to a stable state, its power contained. "Captain," Rayala's voice crackled through the communicator. "The energy levels in the sector are stabilizing. The Eye's systems are shutting down." Psylocke let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good work, everyone. Let's get back to the Arbiter." As the team made their way back to the shuttle, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of profound exhaustion. The battle was over, the Eye of Eternity was no longer a threat, and the void, at least for now, had been stopped. But as they boarded the shuttle and prepared to return to the Arbiter, Alex knew that the fight against the void was far from over. The Eye of Eternity had been a powerful weapon, but it was only a part of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that humanity had once been a part of, and one that they would need to understand if they were to survive the challenges to come. As the shuttle departed the Eye, leaving the ancient structure behind, Alex allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The galaxy was still in danger, and the road ahead would be long and perilous. But for the first time in a long while, Alex Mercer felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. And as the Arbiter flew through the void, its crew united in purpose, Alex knew that humanity's legacy, its strength, its resilience, its indomitable spirit, would continue to live on in those who remembered. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the power of the Eye or the threat of the void. It was about the people who stood up, who fought back, who refused to give in to despair. It was about those who knew a human. And that, Alex realized, was the greatest strength of all. The end.